How can plastic enter into the human brain?
In February 2025, inside a laboratory in Albuquerque in New Mexico, scientists carefully opened sealed containers holding preserved human brain tissue. At first, this was supposed to be a routine environmental health study, just like another investigation into microplastic exposure. But then the test results started appearing on the screens. And there was observed something interesting. Suddenly, the room became quiet, because inside the human brain, the researchers had found tiny fragments of plastic, not in one or two samples, but in almost all of them. For years, scientists had already discovered microplastics in oceans, like in fish, in rainwater, in human blood, and even in unborn babies. But this felt different, because now the question was no longer whether plastic had entered the human body. The question was, how far had it already gone? And more importantly, what was it doing inside the human brain? At first, some researchers believed there could have been a mistake in the testing process, because the numbers looked unusually high. The brain samples appeared to contain far more plastic particles than the liver or kidneys. And according to several reports, the amount was roughly comparable to the weight of a small plastic spoon. Dr. Matthew Campen, a toxicologist at the University of New Mexico, later explained that even the research team was surprised by the findings.
We all were surprised. I could not accept the findings.
How can plastic enter into the human brain?
Honestly, I took 3 days to believe this.
Because this was no longer plastic floating somewhere far away in the Pacific Ocean. This was plastic inside human organs, inside human tissue, and inside the human brain itself. The scientists analyzed tissue collected from autopsies performed over several years in New Mexico. Some samples dated back to 2016. Others came from 2024. And when the researchers compared them, there was another interesting observation. The concentration of microplastics appeared to be increasing over time, nearly 50% higher in the newer samples. But then the researchers noticed something even more concerning. Patients diagnosed with dementia appear to have much higher concentrations of plastic particles inside their brains. That observation quickly triggered international headlines. And within hours, the story started spreading rapidly across the internet, because suddenly people everywhere were asking the same frightening question. If plastic can enter the human brain, what else might it be capable of doing? Then the full laboratory analysis came back, and the researchers identified several forms of plastic embedded inside the brain tissue. One of them was polyethylene, the same material commonly used in plastic bags, food packaging, water bottles, and disposable containers. Under advanced imaging systems, scientists observed tiny shard-like fragments scattered throughout the samples. Some particles were so small, they measured only nanometers across, thousands of times thinner than a single human hair. The findings were eventually published in Nature Medicine, which is considered one of the world's most respected medical journals. And almost overnight, a scientific concern became a global health mystery, because microplastics were no longer just an environmental issue. Now they had entered one of the most protected organs in the human body, the brain. Microplastics are created when larger plastic materials slowly break apart over time. Sunlight, heat, ocean waves, wind, and even normal everyday use can slowly degrade plastic into microscopic fragments. Every time a plastic bottle is opened, every time synthetic clothing is washed, and every time packaging breaks down, tiny particles can be released into the environment. And over the years, those particles have spread almost everywhere on Earth. Scientists have detected microplastics in Antarctic snow, in deep ocean trenches, in clouds, in seafood, in drinking water, and in human blood. But the brain discovery changed the conversation completely, because the human brain is protected by something called the blood-brain barrier, a defense system designed to block dangerous substances from entering brain tissue. And somehow, these plastic particles may have crossed it, which raised another frightening possibility. If plastic can bypass one of the body's strongest protective barriers, then scientists may still not fully understand the scale of human exposure. Inside the University of New Mexico laboratories, researchers spent months carefully studying preserved tissue samples. Dr. Matthew Campen later described the findings as deeply concerning. Neuroscientist Andrew West reportedly admitted that he initially struggled to believe the numbers himself, not until he saw the complete data. And as news organizations around the world started reporting the story, public fear began increasing rapidly online. Videos spread across social media. Headlines warned about plastic inside your brain, the invisible pollution crisis, a spoonful of plastic in the human body. And for many people, the fear came from one simple realization. Plastic exposure was becoming nearly impossible to avoid. It existed in bottled water, in food containers, in takeaway packaging, in synthetic clothing, in household dust, and even in the air people breathe every day, which meant this was no longer a problem affecting only a small group of people. It could potentially affect everyone. But, despite the fear, many scientists also urged caution. Researchers repeatedly emphasized that the study does not prove microplastics directly cause dementia or brain disease, at least not yet. Some experts warned that contamination during laboratory testing remains a major challenge in microplastic research. Others explained that scientists still do not fully understand how these particles behave once inside the body. And right now, that uncertainty may be the most unsettling part of all. Because researchers still do not know whether microplastics could contribute to inflammation, blood vessel damage, hormonal disruption, immune reactions, or neurological problems over long periods of time. The truth is, science still does not have all the answers, and sometimes, the unknown becomes more frightening than the known. The microplastic crisis is no longer just an environmental story. It is becoming a human health story, and possibly one of the defining scientific questions of this century. Global plastic production has increased dramatically over the past few decades. Every year, millions of tons of plastic waste enter oceans, rivers, soil, and the atmosphere. Over time, those materials slowly break down into microscopic particles that spread through ecosystems across the planet. Some recent studies even suggest airborne microplastics may influence climate systems themselves, which means plastic pollution could be affecting both planetary health and human biology at the same time. Meanwhile, scientists around the world are racing to understand whether long-term exposure could already be silently affecting millions of people. And if that turns out to be true, modern society may face a problem far larger than anyone expected, because avoiding plastic entirely has become almost impossible. For now, scientists are not telling people to panic. There is still no proof that microplastics directly cause dementia or brain disease, but researchers agree on something important. The amount of plastic entering the human body appears to be increasing, and many experts believe more investigation is urgently needed. Some doctors now recommend simple precautions like reducing heavily packaged foods, avoiding heating plastic containers, limiting plastic bottled water, and using glass or metal when possible. Not because the science is fully settled, but because the exposure itself is becoming impossible to ignore. For decades, plastic was marketed as convenience, cheap, disposable, everywhere. Most people never imagined that one day, tiny fragments of those materials could end up inside the human body itself. But inside laboratories in New Mexico, scientists may have uncovered evidence of something humanity never expected. A world where microscopic particles from modern life are quietly accumulating inside human organs, including the brain. And perhaps the most unsettling part is this. The exposure may have been growing silently for years, before anyone even noticed it was happening.